Today, we're diving straight into the incredibly full and fascinating life of George H.W. Bush. We're looking at a man whose entire existence, literally from his teenage years all the way into his 90s, was defined by a profound, unwavering sense of duty.
But before we get into the wars, the high-stakes politics, and all the rest, we really need to anchor our understanding in his ultimate vision. He famously wished for a kinder and gentler nation. And this wasn't just some catchy campaign slogan, it was a deeply held personal wish that he carried directly into the White House.
So, here is our roadmap for today. 1. Duty calls early. 2. Building the ultimate resume. 3. Navigating a changing world. And 4. A lasting family legacy.
All right, let's jump straight into Chapter 1, Duty Calls Early, From Student to Soldier.
I want you to imagine being just 18 years old. You go from being a student leader at Phillips Academy straight into the chaos of a world war. Coming from a family deeply rooted in public service, he felt this immediate, pressing responsibility to contribute. So exactly on his 18th birthday, he enlisted. And he proved to be incredibly capable, eventually becoming the Navy's youngest pilot to receive his wings. And he didn't just serve from the sidelines. He flew an astounding 58 combat missions during the war. This was incredibly perilous work. On one specific mission over the Pacific Ocean, while flying a torpedo bomber, his aircraft was actually shot down by Japanese anti-aircraft fire. He somehow survived the crash, was rescued from the water by a U.S. submarine, and was later awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for his absolute bravery in action.
After surviving the war, he wasted no time building a new life. He married Barbara Pierce in 1945. They raised a family of 6 children together, and he traded the ivy-covered halls of Yale for the booming, Wild West environment of the Texas oil industry.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, Building the Ultimate Resume, A Political Rise.
Following in the footsteps of his father, Senator Prescott Bush, he stepped into the political arena. But it wasn't exactly a smooth ride to the top. He served 2 terms as a Texas congressman, yet faced 2 unsuccessful runs for the Senate. But ironically, it was those early setbacks that opened a much bigger door to the executive branch.
What followed next was just a staggering, rapid-fire series of appointments. Ambassador to the UN, Chairman of the Republican National Committee, Chief of the U.S. Liaison Office in China, and finally, Director of the CIA. Every single one of these roles gave him absolutely unparalleled global and geopolitical experience. And this incredibly diverse resume became the ultimate stepping stone. After a failed primary bid in 1980, Ronald Reagan tapped him to be vice president, which perfectly set the stage for his own successful run in 1988, defeating Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis to finally win the presidency.
Moving on to Chapter 3, Navigating a Changing World, the Global Commander-in-Chief.
So he inherits this rigid, dangerous Cold War landscape, entirely defined by a communist empire in the Berlin Wall. Yet during his term, the world completely flipped on its head. The wall fell, and the Soviet Union literally ceased to exist. Bush used his considerable foreign policy experience, along with a really unique gift for personal diplomacy, to build a collaborative relationship with Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. Together, they navigated this massive collapse and achieved a huge reduction in strategic nuclear weapons.
His decisive foreign policy approach was also tested closer to home. When he saw a regional threat, he didn't hesitate for a second, ordering American troops into Panama to successfully overthrow the corrupt regime of General Manuel Noriega. And then, a massive geopolitical crisis erupted. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait in 1990, Bush drew a firm line in the sand. He rallied the United Nations and deployed an incredible 425,000 American troops to the region. They served as the anchor of a vast international coalition, all poised for Operation Desert Storm.
The sheer scale and swiftness of that ensuing operation was just staggering. After weeks of intense air and missile bombardment, it culminated in a mere 100-hour land battle. Let that sink in for a second. Just 100 hours to completely rout Iraq's million-man army. But here is the ultimate political paradox. Despite sky-high popularity from a flawless Desert Storm victory, he was surprisingly vulnerable at home. Domestic economic fears, combined with a public itch for change after 12 solid years of Republican control, ultimately led to his defeat in 1992.
Which leads us to our final chapter, a lasting family legacy, the proud patriarch. Even though his time in the Oval Office had ended, His deep commitment to public service trickled down directly to his kids. The tradition continued robustly, with his sons George and Jeb stepping into prominent executive roles themselves, becoming the governors of Texas and Florida.
During the 2000 election, you could really see his immense emotional investment in his son George W. Bush's presidential run. He made this touching, deeply personal guarantee to voters, saying, "This boy, this son of ours, is not going to let you down."
And that 2000 victory cemented a super-rare historical milestone. It made George H.W. Bush one of only 2 presidents in all of American history, alongside John Adams, to actually watch their own son take the same presidential oath of office.
Some revealing anecdotes from this period show a deeply human side to the former commander-in-chief. When the younger President Bush faced the inevitable political criticism, family members noted that the proud patriarch took those barbs far more emotionally and way more personally than any criticism he had ever faced himself during his decades in the public eye.
George H.W. Bush lived a remarkably full, history-making life. He passed away on November 30, 2018, at the age of 94, leaving behind a profoundly dense legacy of public service that undeniably shaped the modern world. I want to leave you with this to consider. How will history ultimately balance his sweeping, generation-defining global victories against a presidency cut short by domestic realities? It is a complex and fascinating legacy. Thanks so much for joining me today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.